Have you ever witnessed some strange moments while watching SpongeBob SquarePants? Well, in case you haven't, take a seat, grab something to eat, and get ready, because here are some animation errors that you can find in SpongeBob SquarePants. Number 1. MUSCLEBOB BUFFPANTS. Did you know that SpongeBob became super buff during this one episode? After this sporty feeling takes over SpongeBob, he becomes even more famous around Bikini Bottom. In the end, all that our protagonist wanted to do was to impress Sandy, and that's the reason why he bought those inflatable arms. But, well, even if this looks like a funny story to hear and watch, let's look at some animation errors.
You can do it!
What a strange way SpongeBob has to protect himself from dehydration, right? Well, it is known that throughout the history of SpongeBob SquarePants, when our protagonists visit Sandy, they have to wear a glassy helmet with water inside. But this time, this helmet looked a little bit different. In this episode, and unlike all others, the border of the helmet is transparent when SpongeBob is trying to do some push-ups on Sandy's garden. We know that it's hard to start doing exercise, especially with things like this happening.
SpongeBob?
Ahoy, Mr. Krabs!
Mother of pearl!
Now, from a transparent helmet to transparent clothes. Seems like SpongeBob wasn't the only one having problems with his attire in this episode, because look at Mr. Krabs. In this scene, in which Mr. Krabs is cleaning the outside of his famous restaurant, we find a very small yet remarkable animation error. If you look closely at Krabs' arms, the sleeves of his shirt become transparent for a couple of frames. SpongeBob may have gotten buff on this episode, but it has lots of holes in it. Number 2. The Battle of Bikini Bottom. SpongeBob is such a good citizen, isn't he? Well, in this episode from the 5th season of the show, both SpongeBob and Patrick had a hard battle over who was the cleanest of the two, and who could help their city more by cleaning the streets. SpongeBob and Patrick's friendship has always created some funny and wacky adventures, but this one is a really good one to watch. Wow, someone was so scared that his tooth changed color. In this scene, we see that SpongeBob is running scared after a little problem with a booger. He's running so fast that even his teeth change their color. This is not the first time that we see SpongeBob's teeth changing tones, but we found this moment to be a very remarkable moment to show you.
Gold?
Did you get any of Patrick's gold?
He's not digging for any gold I'm looking for.
Wait, does Mr. Krabs have some magic powers now? You may not have noticed anything strange in this scene, but in case you didn't, we recommend you re-watch it. There's a moment in which we see Mr. Krabs running to the kitchen door. The strange thing is that the door opens before Mr. Krabs even reaches it. He's always so stressed that now doors open right when he gets close.
Try me.
Stay back! I'll do it!
It's too late for that!
Well, SpongeBob wasn't the only one having trouble with his teeth. Both SpongeBob and Patrick were too focused on cleaning the depths of Bikini Bottom, so focused that they even forgot about themselves. In this scene, Patrick is lifting a dumpster to throw it to SpongeBob, but it's in this same moment that his teeth become transparent for a couple of frames. Animators had a thing against every protagonist's mouth in this episode. Number 3. Penny Foolish. Well, Mr. Krabs' obsession with money went too far in this Season 6 episode. SpongeBob had the luck of finding a very special penny on the ground after going to the grocery store with Patrick. But can you call that luck when it causes your boss to get crazy over that little penny that you've just found? Well, maybe it's not worth it. Before we find out how really crazy Mr. Krabs got on this episode, we have found some very interesting moments to show you. Just be careful if you find something in the ground and Mr. Krabs is around. Now let's move into some SpongeBob errors.
Hey, maybe it fell in your sock.
Well,
Did you check there? It's just gotta be in there somewhere.
We already told you that Mr. Krabs has an obsession with money, right? If you take a look at this scene slowly and with lots of caution, you will find that something strange happens to SpongeBob's arms while Mr. Krabs is shaking him. Did you notice something? In that same moment when SpongeBob is getting shaken by Mr. Krabs to find if he had that precious penny that he found in the ground, SpongeBob's arms disappear for a couple of frames. Maybe Mr. Krabs should have a little control over himself because he can't be tearing his employees' arms. This might sound very thematic, but Mr. Krabs also had problems with his mouth in this episode. If you had very precise eyes, your eyes might have noticed something strange in this scene. But in case you haven't, don't worry because we're here to tell you. While Mr. Krabs is spying SpongeBob through his telescope, we see that he smiles for a brief second. The strange thing is that the inside of his mouth changes tone from one moment to another. This might be hard to notice for non-expert eyes, but still a mistake waiting to be found. Number 4, summer job. Everyone gets tired of their jobs sometimes, including our favorite boating school teacher, Mrs. Puff. This episode has Mrs. Puff working at the Krusty Krab to pay some debt after she causes big chaos in Bikini Bottom's most famous restaurant. This is really funny because it puts us in front of a very funny scenario. Mrs. Puff working with SpongeBob adds another layer in the love-hate relationship between these two characters. Will they learn to work with each other for once? That's a thing we'll leave you to discover. Now let's move into some animation errors.
Have a good summer vacation, class.
Look how cheerful SpongeBob and his classmates are. Well, usually having SpongeBob in class is a real pain, but this time him being in class brought a funny animation error. Right at the beginning of the episode, when Mrs. Puff and her students are at the start of their class, we see that SpongeBob is laughing, isn't he? At this moment, SpongeBob's tongue changes its color for a brief moment, turning into a yellowish color. What a cool way to start the episode.
Oh, that's it! I don't care anymore! This isn't worth it!
Seems like Mrs. Puff was having a hard time during her stint at the Krusty Krab. There's a moment in the episode where Mrs. Puff gets inflated and starts jumping all over the Krusty Krab. For those of you who are fans of Mrs. Puff, you'll notice that for all of this sequence, Mrs. Puff's skin color is lighter than usual. Maybe her working at the Krusty Krab isn't the strangest thing that you can find in this episode. Number 5, cracked crabs. Have you ever heard about the cheapest crab convention? In this episode, both SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs go to this famous convention to receive the award that they've been nominated for. This ends up transforming into a super fun adventure and has SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs causing big mayhem all over the hotel that they slept in. But let's leave spoilers aside and let's jump into some animation errors, shall we?
For ruining everything so I could win. Put it there, SpongeBob, me boy.
Sure. Oop.
Mr. Krabs isn't really kind with others, but here we see him sharing a cool moment with SpongeBob until he cuts his hand off. After getting the cheapest crab award, both Krabs and SpongeBob shake hands, but being a crab, this leads to SpongeBob losing his hand after Krabs cuts it with his claw. Well, this is a funny moment, but it also comes with a small animation error, because if you look at Mr. Krabs' legs, suddenly they turn turn blue instead of their typical red. But this is not the only error that this scene comes with, because when Mr. Krabs is holding the award, SpongeBob's teeth also turn yellow for a brief second. This episode may have strengthened their friendship to a cool level, but it had some cool errors in exchange. Well, there you have it, SpongeBob fans. Those are some errors that you can find in SpongeBob SquarePants. Please leave a like on the video and subscribe to our channel so we can provide you with even cooler SpongeBob content. Until the next time, goodbye!